say what is the whole procedure is about today.
And then let us.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Lizama, and I attend to Goodwood Secondary School.
And my name is Glenda Roberts Henry, representing the Canaan Bonacourt Senior Activity Center. It is my pleasure for doing this. And we are here at the chambers to witness the countdown on the youth and the elderly. And I will put it in a different way. I will say experience versus technology. So we are here, myself and Miss Lizama, to see the countdown of this wonderful day.
Thank you. Forget.
Good day again. Back to the chambers. I am here with Miss Nadia, and she will tell us today what she thinks about the debate, Tobago Day debate.
Good afternoon. The plenary sitting debate with the students, I am seeing that it's a mixture of elderly and juniors, and I'm excited to see the presentation put on by both the elderly and the juniors. It is going to be exciting, and I hope that our viewers also learn from this, that the youths can work with the elderly, even if it's at mock plenary sitting debate.
Thank you, Miss Nadia.
Thank you.
And as she says, she's looking forward for the debate. Thank you.
Hi, good day, and what is your expectations of today's debate?
Well, first of all, I want to commend the Assembly Legislature for putting on this event, capturing not only the youth, but also those among us who are more senior. What I expect, to be quite honest, is a very lively debate and perspective. And it's very good, especially for someone in my position, to always have a good pulse and idea of what young people are thinking, and as well as those who are senior to me are thinking. So I look forward to the perspective of the old, the young, and the young at heart.
Okay, that is really good. And after this debate, will you put these things in consideration?
I always put into consideration what the population have to say. I always let persons know that no man is an island. And of course, politics is about people. And it's very important that whenever you speak, you represent the views of the people. So and I pride myself in being a very honest person, sometimes my own detriment, I think. So with that in mind, I always like to keep in context what is said to me, and from all sectors, from all persons, all walks of life. So I look forward to hearing the perspectives so that it will continue to make me a better rounded person.
Wow, that's great, and I hope you enjoy.
I hope so too.
Thank
Have a wonderful
you.
day. Good job.
Same to you. Hi, good day, and what is your name?
My name is Wendy Guy Hernandez.
And who are you coming to support today?
Well, because of my portfolio where I'm at the Division of Sport and Youth Affairs, I'm coming to see the young people in action today.
Wow, that should be great. And what is your expectations on today's debate?
Well, over the years, I have been enjoying the energy that the young people bring to these debates. So I'm coming hoping that they will surpass what I'm accustomed to.
Wow, that's great. I hope you have a good time. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are here once more with Mr. Smith, and he wants to tell us what he thinks about today's debate, Tobago Day debate.
Right. Well, I think it's a very good initiative, especially to get young persons interfacing with the older persons with regards to this debate. It's also a very good debate, especially coming from the village I'm from, a village rich in heritage. Also I came up in an extended family, so I understand the importance of seniors in the home and in the wider society in general.
Okay, Mrs. Smith, which village you?
I'm from Pembroke, actually.
Pembroke. That is really a heritage village.
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Over to you.
Gregory Johnson.
Good, great you. And who are you coming to support today?
Alyssa. So I'm looking forward to see what she have to say, and I'm very anxious about that.
Okay, and what is your expectations on today's debate?
Well, I'm looking forward to see what you all have to offer, because it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I hope you have a great time. Thank you. Doesn't matter. Hi, good day, Mr. Ansel Dennis. And how are you feeling today?
I'm tremendously proud, as we celebrate Tobago Day, looking at the achievement of Tobagonians and Tobago as an island on a whole. So I'm tremendously proud about today.
That's great. And what is your expectations on today's debate?
Well, I'm looking forward to a very good debate, a very informative one based on research and based on new ideas. I think it's the first time we're doing a debate that includes both seniors and youth. Usually in the past, we tended to separate them. So we had the youth debate separately, and of course, I think we had a couple senior debates in the past as well. So I think it's a good idea and a good initiative to have a debate joint between seniors and our youth.
Okay, thank you. I hope you have a great time and you will, enjoy. Thank you.
Everybody inside too.
All rise for the presiding officer.
Let us pray. O Almighty God, as we have come together to begin our meeting of the Assembly, we humbly beseech you to grant to all our members the light and guidance of your Holy Spirit, that we may wisely take counsel together and come to such decisions as shall promote your glory and the well-being of all our citizens in this, our land, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be enjoyed by all people. Grant this for the sake of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Oath of allegiance of a new member. Announcement by the presiding officer.
Honorable members, observers in the public gallery, media, welcome to today's sitting. I must inform this Honorable House of the changes to today's debate. This year, the Youth Assembly will be the Tobago Day debate, a mixture of youth and seniors debating a motion on behalf of the people of Tobago. Honorable members, may your presentations reflect your passion and drive for the motion moved, and may you do so respecting the policies and procedures of this Honorable House.
Assembly bills sent back from Cabinet. Assembly laws brought back from Parliament. Petitions. Papers. Presentation of reports from Dispute Resolution Commission. Select committees. Questions from secretaries. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by secretaries or assistant secretaries. Personal explanations. Introduction of bills. Motions relating to the business or sitting of the Assembly and moved by a secretary or assistant secretary. Public business. Executive Council business. Motion.
I invite Councillor Patricia Whiteman to move the motion.
Good afternoon, Mr. Presiding Officer, members of this December sitting, persons in the public gallery, the media, viewers via the web. Motion. Whereas it is known that the population size is linked to the economic development and therefore Tobago will benefit from maintaining and even increasing its size. And whereas human capital resources are critical to the development of Tobago and preservation of its indigenous culture, and whereas the experience of seniors continue to be an invaluable asset to our development, which must be balanced by providing opportunities to encourage the retention of youth skills on the island. Be it resolved that this legislature of students and seniors form a working committee to develop a framework for the transfer of knowledge between seniors and young people in the workplace. And be it resolved that the transfer of knowledge be effectively a two-way process. And be it further resolved, the report be submitted to the respective line division for consideration as statements to be laid in the House within 6 months. Motion. Mr. Presiding Officer, I stand to put forward the following argument in great support of the motion presently before this House. Whereas Section 2 of the motion states, human capital resources are critical to the development of Tobago, and whereas, mindful of my esteemed colleagues and the world at large are all familiar with the renowned Singapore model, and whereas straitstime.com states, the Human Capital Index launched by the World Bank placed Singapore #1 out of countries for investing in human capital. This was published October 12, 2018. Mr. Presiding Officer, Singapore became self-governing in 1959. It moved from a small, sleepy town to a giant global financial hub in a record-breaking time, all because it went the route of investing in its human capital through education. Be it resolved that this House supports this argument and take a page out of Singapore's book, place greater emphasis on human capital, which is of paramount to the development of Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, not only will there be 360 buoyancy, but Tobago will be known as the Singapore of the Caribbean. My mama always used to tell me, where horse reach, jackass go reach there too. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Honorable House, the question proposed is, whereas it is known that population size is linked to economic development, and therefore Tobago will benefit from maintaining and even increasing its population size, and whereas human capital resources are critical to the development of Tobago and the preservation of its indigenous culture, and whereas the experience of seniors continues to be an invaluable asset to our development, which must be balanced by providing opportunities to encourage the retention of youth skills on the island, be it resolved that this legislature of students and seniors form a working committee to develop a framework for the transfer of knowledge between seniors and young people in the workplace. And be it resolved that the transfer of knowledge be effectively a two-way process. And be it further resolved that the report be submitted to the respective line divisions for considerations as statements to be laid in the House within 6 months. Chief Secretary Joe Sheldon, Member for Goodwood Belgarden.
A pleasant good afternoon, Mr. Presiding Officer, members of this Legislative House, persons in the public gallery, and media personnel. Mr. Presiding Officer, there's a division between the youths and the seniors to date. This division can affect us economically and as well as culturally. Elders form the base of our pyramid, which is our culture. In their absence, we would fail to exist. They are the pillars of our society, our traditions, culture, along with religion and history, gets passed through them to this oblivious young generation. Their skills, knowledge, and other intangible assets can be used to create economic value for our community. Developing an intergenerational program benefits the older adults who participate and also benefits the youth participants and the community at large. Children who are involved in intergenerational mentoring programs develop skills, values, a sense of empowerment, leadership, citizenship, communication skills, problem-solving abilities, a sense of purpose, and community. One of the major benefits of intergenerational programs is bringing together diverse groups and helping to reduce inaccurate stereotypes as older adults and youth develop relationships with one another. They can help to build a sense of personal and societal identity while encouraging tolerance. For example, advantages of intergenerational relationships can: 1. Provide an opportunity for both to learn new skills. 2. Invigorate and energize older adults. 3. Help reduce the likelihood of depression in the elderly. 4. Reduce isolation in adults. 5. Help keep family stories and history alive. According to researchers at the University of Florida, relating to older adults can be particularly challenging for adolescents. Adolescents tend to be focused on the present and think mainly about themselves. Teens may display negative behavior that is hard to understand, and adolescents will need guidance and encouragement to help them relate to older adults and to understand the implications of aging. Here are some activities that can build, initiate, and strengthen intergenerational relationships. Storytelling. Swapping stories is a great activity that can help build connections. Learning skills. Many older adults have skills or talents that will be interesting for children. Perhaps young people can learn to fish, crochet, sew, or even learn to prepare some of grandma's favorite recipes, like prawns, sweet bread, coconut bread, freshly made in our traditional dirt oven, or even take care of animals. Talking about ethnic heritage. The young and the old can share customs, discuss the meanings of some of their sayings, or even relate special stories passed down from our culture. For example, some of our famous folklores. When older adults contribute to the well-being of youth, it cultivates a sense of purpose and extends both ways. To say that one generation cannot understand the other is false. Intergenerational programs bring these two age groups together to understand their similarities and their differences. I thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, for taking time of heeding this argument that I positively support.
Assemblyman Joshua Fraser, member for Plymouth Golden Lane.
Good afternoon, Mr. Presiding Officer, persons in the public gallery, and media personnel. Mr. Presiding Officer, thank you for allowing me to enter this debate. Today, I wish to correct the misguided motion which states, and whereas the experience of seniors continue to be an invaluable asset to our development, which must be balanced by providing opportunities to encourage the retention of youth skills on the island. Now, Mr. Presiding Officer, I find the motion to be very biased because it only highlights the experience of seniors and that they continue to be an invaluable asset to our development. Mr. Presiding Officer, what about our experienced youths? Aren't we innovative, creative, and knowledgeable just like the seniors? It would be remiss of me, Mr. Presiding Officer, if I do not recognize the vast contribution of the seniors. However, it would also be irresponsible and disheartening to neglect the crucial contribution of the youth has made towards the development of Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, according to the Chief Minister Adnan Satin, history has shown that visionaries are people who are ahead of time and always thinking creatively out of the box. Visionary youths of today have shown us that we need young people who can envision what the future may hold. We need to come up with solutions in order to meet the future challenges head on, end quote. On the other hand, the government might say, according to 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, makes it quite clear that you should not rebuke your elders, and that it is also written that it is good to hear counsel and receive instruction, that thou may be wise, which is taken from Proverbs chapter 19, verse 20. But Mr. Presiding Officer, it is proven that one hand cannot clap. And in order for the transference of knowledge to be effective enough, the youth must be able to have respect and practical expertise that affords them the opportunity to learn in a two-way process. I thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Assemblyman Patricia Sasanka.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, and good afternoon to you. My colleagues, members in the gallery, the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to join my colleagues in giving my full support to this motion. And if you may find me passionate at times, it is only because I am now in the senior category and I recognize the importance and the benefits of this motion. Mr. Presiding Officer, today I want to focus on the part of the motion that says the experience of seniors continues to be an invaluable asset to our development. Based on the Trinidad and Tobago census of 2011, Tobago has a population of 60,784 persons. Of this, 12% are seniors. So, about 7,200 of these persons are over the age of 60 years. Mr. Presiding Officer, most of these seniors would have contributed to the development in our island. They are the ones that would have worked and used their expertise and skills to develop Tobago and to bring it to where we are now. Together, they would have accumulated a wealth of experience, and it is this experience that we consider to be an invaluable asset for the development of Tobago. What is an invaluable asset? Webster's dictionary defines it as something extremely useful, priceless. So then we, the seniors, are extremely useful. We are priceless. So when we reach 60 years, there's no need to lock us away like fine china and let our expertise and skills go to waste. No, we still have life. We have value, and we have purpose. We have experience, training, and knowledge. And these are the things that we want to use to pass on to the youth, transfer this knowledge to the youth that could help them in the development of themselves. Mr. Presiding Officer, we can also help to teach the young people skills, life skills, like work ethics, critical thinking. We can assist them, yes. And then what about tacit knowledge? You don't learn that in any school book. No. This is things that you learn from the seniors. Mingling with the seniors, we learn from them. And yes, my friends on the other side, they will say the seniors have already played their role, go home and rest, go and see about your grandchild, blah, blah, blah. They may say that. And because they have modern technology and they have modern ways of doing things. And today I want to say modern technology is great. It is valuable. It is the vehicle to the finished product, the vehicle to the future. But tell me, now it's Christmas time. Most of us will be making black cake, right? And we're going to be using the modern technology because the modern technology would help us to do it faster. But how are you going to know when the batter is at the right texture, the right consistency before you put it in the oven? The seniors would have taught us the wooden spoon test. When the spoon stands up straight, it is at the right consistency. You won't learn that in any cookery book. This is what you call tacit knowledge. And this is what we want to pass on to the youths. Yes, the youths are innovative. Yes, the youths are all these good things. But I hear you. But we feel that we still have things that we can pass that you don't know about, the experience, and so we would be able to pass it on to them. So, Mr. Presiding Officer, it is the tacit knowledge and experience of the seniors that is going to show excellence. When you know what you want to achieve, modern technology will get you there. However, it will get you there quickly and efficiently, we agree. But the tacit knowledge and the experience of the seniors will ensure excellence. On the one hand, we have seniors with skills, tacit knowledge, experience, and wisdom. The other hand, we have youths, energy, education, innovation, modern technology. One hand can't clap, as my colleague says. But when you have the coming together of both hands, we have a perfect match. And so, like the Sankofa bird, we need the knowledge of the seniors to work hand in hand with the youths to ensure the development of Tobago. I thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Minority Leader, Assemblyman Rudolph Hippolyte, Member for Scarborough-Calder Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, and I say good afternoon to you, my colleagues on the other side, the media, and members sitting in the public gallery. Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to confine myself with the latter part of the motion, beginning, be it resolved that this legislature of students and seniors form a working committee to develop a framework for the transfer of knowledge between seniors and young people in the workplace. And be it resolved that the transfer of knowledge be effectively a two-way process. And be it further resolved that the report be submitted to the respective live division for consideration as statements to be made in the House within 6 months. Mr. Presiding Officer, there are 53 members of the Commonwealth, of which Trinidad is a signatory, Trinidad and Tobago. And all members subscribe to the Commonwealth values and principles outlined in the Commonwealth Charter. And this is the Commonwealth Charter. And the Commonwealth Charter speaks of the separation of powers. And I would read just that portion. We recognize the importance of maintaining the integrity of the roles of the legislature, executive, and judiciary. These are the guarantors, their respective spheres of the rule of law, the promotion and protection of fundamental rights, and the adherence to good governance. We in Tobago do not have a judiciary, but we have a legislature, and we have the executive. The executive council here is what we would have as the executive. I'm troubled with the motion, Mr. Chairman, because in the latter part, it speaks that the legislature would appoint the committee, and I was a bit troubled. I'm still troubled. I thought that was the responsibility of the Chief Secretary and the Executive Council. I find it very difficult to understand that the legislature is occupying this role. I thought there was a complete separation of powers and one should not interfere with the other. So I am wondering whether or not, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Presiding Officer, if the responsibility to advise doesn't come from the executive. If the legislator has the privilege or the authority to as it is said here, to form a working committee to develop a framework for the transfer of knowledge. I am wondering if it is the legislator's responsibility to do that. I'm also wondering if it is the legislator's responsibility that the report be submitted to the respective line divisions for consideration, a statement to be laid in the House. Because of these, I find it very difficult to support the motion, because I'm not understanding clearly that the separation of powers are in place. I find it very difficult, very, very difficult to support the motion. I just want to read here again, the Executive Council shall be responsible for the carrying out of the functions of the Assembly, and the Chief Secretary may, for that purpose, undertake or assign to a Secretary responsibilities for any such function.
Member, your speaking time has ended. Assemblyman Antoinette Lewis, member for Lambo Signal Hill.
A pleasant afternoon to extend it to Mr. Presiding Officer, all members of the Council, members of the press, event organizers, specially invited guests, and persons in the public gallery. Ladies and gentlemen, as we examine the motion set before us today, I firstly wish to acknowledge the importance of intergenerational bridge program and activities that bring multiple age demographics together within a country's society. While researching, I found similar programs implemented at local and legislative level in the countries world over, from the Republic of India in Asia to the United States of America on the American continent. The following is taken from a paper written by Sally Newman of the University of Pittsburgh, 2005, entitled Intergenerational Learning and the Contribution of Older People for Centuries in Both Traditional and Cultural Integrational Learning has been an informal vehicle within families for systematic transfer of knowledge, skills, competency, norms, and values between generations. And it's as old as mankind. And I may also add, even here in our beautiful Tobago, the handling of enterprises by grandparents and parents to their children to create continuity in their entrepreneurship and legacy. Typically, the elders or grandparents of a family share their wisdom and are valued for their role in perpetuating the values, culture, and uniqueness of the family. Intergenerational exchange within the family is intended to keep new generations grounded in the history of their culture and is to provide a link to their past. It is important that we as a body carefully develop the emotion before us today to guide this process within a 21st century context, with emphasis being placed on a clear two-way exchange of knowledge and information between the target and demographics in Tobago. Some notable benefits of intergenerational programs and activities are when senior and youth demographics get together, they are able to share very different and equally valuable perspectives. The youth come with abundant and original energy. The elders, on the other hand, bring decades of experience and memories from many phases of life. Other benefits include socialization. These companion interactions offer powerful social experience for youth and seniors alike. Purpose. Older adults often must go through role reversal and changes to the way they are used to being independent. Spending time with children and sharing their wisdom reignites a sense of purpose. Children, too, can feel the rewards of greater connection with their elders and the importance of their part in the equation. Health. Older adults are likely to get more exercise for the body, mind, and emotion. When they spend time with kids, this experience can have a positive impact on their overall well-being. One of the most important benefits is the relation to technology. Because today's youths are raised with technology an integral part of their daily life, they can be great teachers, for the older adults who are still trying to get used to the idea and how technology works. As we proceed with the debate and examine the resolutions set within today's motion, we must aim to have a true representation from all sectors of Tobago society and not only focus on a few areas of convenience which are easy to implement. The development of strategic partnership between youths and elderly demographics of Tobago society should not only be focused on areas like commercial interests. The preservation of indigenous culture is imperative. Many unique skills and information are not recorded and is only known due to oral tradition. So there needs to be partnership with the fisherman who has a unique fishing style. We need to speak to our tour guides who do rainforest tours and knows many medicinal plants that is lost to us. There needs to be partnership with all these people, with our youths. In doing so, we can find new ways to update these sectors. One example is the development of an app just to plot hiking points around Tobago to make it more accessible to everyone. I thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Councillor Kaylee Lewis.
Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. The dashing is scarce. It's had nobody to run the goats and the crabs. And tourism in Tobago is a bust. You're scared? Don't be. This is only a dream. And this situation can only occur if our human capital resources deplete. Before I begin my presentation, Mr. Presiding Officer, members of this legislature, persons in the gallery, media, personnel, please allow me to bid you good afternoon. The second part of the motion reads, and whereas human capital resources are critical to the development of Tobago and preservation of its indigenous culture. Now, members of this House, when I first read this motion, the two words that stood out to me are critical and preservation. Allow me to explain. Critical, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is having a decisive importance in the success or failure of something, while preservation means to maintain or keep something in its state, in its original state rather. So when we put everything into perspective, we get to understand that the motion is saying that our human capital resources has an important decisive role in determining whether or not Tobago's development and the preservation of its indigenous culture is a success or a failure. The members on the opposing side might try to tell you something like technology is the way to go because we are evolving. But ladies and gentlemen, today I want to tell you that we cannot, and I will bold-facedly repeat, that we cannot develop Tobago and maintain its indigenous culture using a robot. You see, culture in Tobago is the people. Culture in Tobago is the warmth and the hospitality of the citizens of Tobago. And yes, I know people come to Tobago for the beaches and for the goat and crab race, for the blue food, or even to eat tom-tom, which is a local delicacy I would have never known about if it wasn't for one of our seniors who is actually opposing the motion. Good day to you, Mr. Lennox. How are you doing? But don't believe me when I say that the hospitality of the people is the only reason why people come to Tobago. Believe the Caribbean Tourism Organization in its UK chapter in June 2016, who ranked local people as the third main reason why people visit the Caribbean. And if you don't believe that, believe Simon and Ruth Matthews, who were passengers on the Mariella Explorer 2 on Monday, December 2nd, 2019. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that cruise ship that was in Scarborough Port on Monday, December 2nd, 2019. Simon and Ruth revealed in an interview that their favorite parts of their experience in Tobago was the warmth and the hospitality of the people. And we know that Tobagonians are loving people. Actually, Trinidad and Tobago was ranked the happiest Caribbean country according to the United Nations. In Tobago, this is the only place something bad could happen to you, and your mommy tell you, that good for you. Members of this house, please don't be misguided by the attempts of the opposition to lead you down a lifeless eternity. Please make use of our human capital resources, as this is the only way we can develop Tobago and preserve its indigenous culture. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Councillor Tanika Cruikshank.
Good afternoon, Mr. Presiding Officer, members of this Legislative House, persons in the public gallery, members of the press, and those looking on via the media. Mr. Presiding Officer, I am obligated to speak on this motion, whereas it is known that the population size is linked to economic development, and therefore Tobago will benefit from maintaining and even increasing its population size. Mr. Presiding Officer, one of the immediate and apparent outcomes is that Tobago's economy would be further developed and strengthened. The growth of population equates to an increase in items such as clothing, educational material, food, and other household goods. In addition, increased number of family members encourages the improvement of families into larger homes. This results in an increased trade, which is essential supports several sectors of the economy, like manufacturing, agriculture, construction, and increase in labor force. Population growth does cause an increase in labor force. This ensures efficient utilization of resources and optimal productivity in sectors such as agriculture and manufacturing. Availability of labor is an essential tool too for an economic development. Moreover, an increase in tax translates to an increase in tax revenue. This enables the government to have an easy access to resources for its normal operation, security, and infrastructural development. Mr. Presiding Officer, by increasing our population size, we will have to input structures to accommodate these people we are bringing into our island. Firstly, an efficient system for registration and naturalization must be in effect. As such, there would be deliberate efforts to control and regulate numbers and quality of persons coming into the island. Besides, globalization compels states to facilitate and accommodate the movement of skills and talents across borders. By increasing our population size and its economic contribution, we are simply fulfilling our natural and expected mandate. Already we have seen an attempt at efficient handling of migrants into the country, and specifically Tobago, with the recent influx of migrants from Venezuela. The system of which I speak, Mr. Presiding Officer, would be more efficient and effective than was at that time. Well, Mr. Presiding Officer, I am aware of concerns some persons may have about pressures being put on our natural resources, particularly the forest, as it concerns deforestation for housing and employment. Mr. Presiding Officer, let me share, and as an avid environmentalist, there is technology which is now at our fingertips, which we can make this project eco-friendly. We will have well-educated and skillful persons on this project. Well, more people once meant more talent and innovation. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. We hope to see this exceptional idea fulfilled.
Assemblyman Janae Campbell, member for Blackrock, Wim, Spring Garden.
Good afternoon, Mr. Presiding Officer, members of the media, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is said that knowledge is power, but knowledge without application of this power is indeed futile. With that being said, while the transfer of knowledge between seniors and the youth is an integral factor towards Tobago's progression, it is even more significant to focus on providing our youth with an opportunity to attain their own unique experiences in the workplace. Let me elaborate on the irony of brain drain. What is brain drain? Well, brain drain speaks of the migration of an educated class from one country to the other. But interesting to note, on July the 5th, 2018, Arthur Dasht responded to a publication of the Newsday which featured the Minister of Education addressing a group of medical graduates. He advised them that they should seek employment overseas, providing that there aren't enough services required for them here in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, isn't that ironical that our leaders who constantly complain about the brain drain dilemma here in Trinidad and Tobago are not providing adequate resources to ensure that our educated young individuals are provided with the opportunity to work? Now, for this transfer of knowledge to be effective, both must coexist in the workplace. And you cannot have this coexistence without young persons being employed in the first place. Now, the International Labour Organization shows statistics of 2013 shows that youth not in education, employment, or training is a resounding 52.5%. Yet, in the Tobago context, many senior citizens who have surpassed the age for statutory retirement continue to hold government contracts while our youth have to hear, "I regret to inform you, but there are no vacancies." Is that reasonable? Is this the kind of morass that passes for governance here? I say we need to focus on employing our youth before we can even speak about the exchange of knowledge. And while we value your knowledge, what use of it? What is the use of it if we cannot apply it? And I have a question to ask. Do our administrators have a problem with hiring permanent workers? Is every man jack on contract? Right now, I am afraid because I would be damned if I get a medical degree and somebody come and tell me, "You get a 1-month contract." Some may say that there are several youth initiatives such as the on-the-job training program as well as the YES program, but might I inform you that these services are only seasonal? What happens when these job opportunities are over with? Are our youth given the assurance that they will be provided with permanent job opportunities? We need to work on job security because many of our young individuals are going to other places. Look, for instance, many of our nurses would have been forced to travel to the UK because they cannot have work here in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is not good enough. And in conclusion, I would like to say that this doesn't even make any sense because this legislature does not have the capacity to form a working committee to develop the framework. One, as Mr. Hippolyte would have mentioned, there is something called the separation of powers. So, Mr. Presiding Officer, how can you form a working committee to develop the framework of the transfer of knowledge? This is an executive decision, and Ms. Chief Secretary, you should have dealt with this in your executive council meeting and then report it back to us. As I close, I say let us focus on matters of relevance rather than sit here under the misconception that something fruitful would actually come out of this. I thank you.
Assemblyman, I thank you for the passion, But let us try to remember to be as respectful and as cordial to all the members in this august house. Assemblyman Jamon Madam, member for Palatuve, Lansfome, Speyside.
For allowing me to enter this debate. Before I continue with my contribution today, I would like to address something that I have been hearing today. Councillor Cruikshank stated that with the implementation of population increase, they will have more benefits of clothing, education, labor force, and national development. But let me inform you, the Philippines Journal of Development 2010 stated that, unquote, it should be noted that the negative effects concerning the consequences of population growth have been prevailing over the positive opinions ever since 1798. So all these benefits that you are speaking about are clearly outweighed by all these positives you are speaking about are clearly outweighed by the negatives. But let me continue. Mr. Presiding Officer, my colleagues on the other side have arrived at a false conclusion in submitting that Tobago will benefit from maintaining and increasing its population size. But I would like them to pay full attention while I respond. According to the United Nations, the Earth's population is growing between 1.1 to 2.2% each year. There are suspected to be 9.7 billion people living on the Earth by the reach of 2050. Yes, Mr. Presiding Officer, an overpopulated Earth, as stated by the UN. Is this what small Tobago wants to contribute to? In that same article, the UN also went as far as to state that many of the fastest growing populations are the poorest. For example, look at India. The opposition fails to realize that population growth results in increased needs, increased consumption, and declining resources. And for an island that depends mainly on imports, we are not to even consider this pointless motion in the House today. Mr. Presiding Officer, continental philosopher Henry Bergson stated in his book entitled The Sources of Morality and Religion, Europe is overpopulated. The world will soon be in the same condition. And if the self-reproduction of man is not rationalized, we shall have war. End quote. Mr. Presiding Officer, I would love to ask the government if they have even considered these negative effects. But no, they are only considered about this term, known about economic development. Money lovers. Mr. Presiding Officer, I would love to... Mr. Presiding Officer, I have another question to the government.
Let's have some respect.
Why is it that every time America and these international countries sneezes, we have to catch the flu? Why for once can't we be different? People visit Tobago for our distinctive culture and hospitality, as it allows them to take a break from the world while exploring our unique places of interest all in one piece. Why would we want to turn our beautiful paradise into an unauthentic, over-industrialized, finance-driven, and environmentally degrading slum? Why should we do that? The potential implementation of this preamble has nothing more than one sinister intent, Mr. Presiding Officer, which is to take attention from real-time issues that must be attended to and putting it on something that will not contribute to Tobago's development. Mr. Presiding Officer, I would suggest to the government today that we place more attention on bringing back our agricultural sector to where it once was. I would also suggest to the government today that we increase our tourism offerings, as it is our #1 source of income here in Tobago. I would also suggest to the government that we focus on rapid infrastructural development around the island. I would also suggest to the government that we perfect what we already have instead of introducing something that will increase unemployment, infant mortality rates, and youth delinquency in our island. And I know the government might state that the recent fiscal budget allocated $47,085,513 to the division of food production, forestry, and fisheries, and that a percentage of that will contribute to the sector. But Mr. Presiding Officer, talk is cheap. And that is all the government has been doing over the past years, because we continuously see no change. Councillor Witterman stated, Councillor Witterman brought up Singapore, but let me tell you a little about Singapore concerning population growth. According to GuideMeSingapore.com, Singapore had no natural resources. A small island like us had more natural resources than them. One of the most competitive countries in the world. Only because the government decided to take suitable action. But what is this government doing? Absolutely nothing, Mr. Presiding Officer. PopulationSG.com
Member,
also stated.
your speaking time has ended.
Good evening, Mr. President. Two red lights. Good evening, Mr. Presiding Officer. I beg that the speaking time of the Honorable Speaker be extended a further 2 minutes.
As I must continue.
Honorable House, the question put is that this member's speaking time be extended by 2 minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Member, your speaking time is extended by 2 minutes. Please continue.
Yes, in continuing, PopulationSG.com quoted, Singapore's population has remained stable in the past year. At 5.61 million as of June 2017, it grew by a mere 0.1% over the past decades. Its slowest pace of growth in more than a decade. This shows that the government clearly hasn't done enough research, as they widely insinuated that population growth is linked to economic development. But let me inform you, not for Singapore. Also, Mr. Presiding Officer, imagine we had a minimal freak storm in September, and the maintenance and recovery of electricity and flooding in our capital town and island was very poor and unacceptable. Keep in mind that this was less than a Category 1 hurricane encounter. If the government can barely maintain our island during the course of a minimal storm, why should we give them the responsibility of maintaining a growing population? Instead of investing in new advancements to control disasters like these, they want us to increase the population, which will result in various forms of deforestation, putting our small paradise in a more susceptible position. Mr. Presiding Officer, prevention is better than cure. And if the government stubbornly implements this impertinent motion, as my granny would say, crap or smoke with pipe. Right. Mr. Presiding Officer, I am very disappointed today, because the government would have the administration draft this half-thought-out amendment to legislation, dissenting and totally ignoring real-time issues, Mr. Presiding Officer. Diabolical indeed. But, Mr. Presiding Officer, whether the glass is half empty or half full, we have the power to fill it up. And I hope that the government will take heed to the opposition's amendments and deteriorates today in moving forward to ensure that Tobago's decisions are made, ensure that suitable decisions are made concerning Tobago's socio-economic development. I repeat, not economic development, but socio-economic development.
Thank
Mr.
you, member.
Officer,
Thank you. Leader of Assembly Business, Assemblyman Abimbola Maharaj, member for Buku, Mount Pleasant.
Mr. Presiding Officer, my fellow colleagues, members of the public gallery, and media personnel, a pleasant good afternoon. It is obvious that my colleagues on the other side of the room does not understand simple mathematics. There's a reason why in CSEC, mathematics is a compulsory subject. We all want economic growth. We all want to be comfortably at the end of the day. Look at you all in your splendid suits. We want to be able to afford such commodities. We all want a good standard of living. We all want productivity. Let me make this as simple as possible for you. Let me put it in an equation. Labor force plus life skills equals productivity. I will make my 2 points in the context of this equation. However, let me highlight the reality of our situation. According to the Tobago labor statistics for 2018, I want to highlight the fourth quarter figures.
There are 1,100 unemployed persons, both male and female, who are not interested in looking for jobs. There are 2,000 unskilled people working in the labor force, and this is just the ages between the ages of 19 to 29. 16.7% is the rate of persons that did not complete secondary level of schooling. This kind of situation results in less productivity and less efficiency. My colleagues on the other side of the room seem to want another type of equation built on negativity. No productivity plus no efficiency equals a stagnant economy. This is not the equation that will develop Tobago. So, my 2 points. 1, we must add to the labor force. 2, we must add to their skills. As my fellow colleague would have mentioned, Councillor Tanika, adding to Tobago's population size would increase its economic development. How, you may ask? It is as the first part of the motion says, Tobago will benefit from maintaining and even increasing its population size. How? An increase in the labor force would make the economic task easier for everyone. I remember my grandfather always used to say, many hands make light work. And back in his day, they used to teach maths like this. If 6 men build a house in 10 days, then 12 men will build the same house in 5 days. Adding to our labor force makes the work burden lighter and easier and increases the chance of productivity for everyone. Consider this. 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. Do you get the point? More people, more work done, more productivity. My second point, the last part of the equation, I remind you, labor force plus life skills equals productivity. So let's talk about life skills. Adding to the life skills of our citizens will have a positive impact on our economy. And of course, productivity. There's an unfortunate gap between the classroom and the boardroom, and even the room that our elderly resides in.
Member, your speaking time has ended.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I wish for you to add 2 minutes to the presentation of Ms. Abimbola, please.
Members, the question put is that the members' speaking time be extended by a further 2 minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say nay. The ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Continuing. Why are we not utilizing the skill set, the experience, and the knowledge base of our elderly? What about the natural customer service acumen that they were born with, that we in this generation have difficulty inculcating? A simple thing as saying good morning has a ripple effect on our tourism product, and as a result, our economy. Imagine at a Crown Point hotel, for instance. Bad manners can result in negative repercussion. Let's add their experience to the workforce. Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to close by offering to my learned colleagues on the other side of the house that they avail themselves of the math classes being offered, like at Math House in Signal Hill, and learn the mathematics of building Tobago economy. We have to add, I say add, to the labor force and add to its life skills. The equation, say it with me, labor force plus life skills equals productivity. Mr. Presiding Officer, I thank you.
Assemblyman Maud Guy Kwamina, member for Canaan Bonaccord.
Good afternoon, Mr. Presiding Officer, to those in the House, via the website, YouTube, and even the Facebook. This evening, Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to beg of you that as I read the motion number 4, be it resolved that this legislature of students and seniors form a working committee to develop a framework for the transfer of knowledge between seniors and youth, or seniors and young people in the workplace, and be it resolved that the transfer of knowledge be effectively a two-way process. I would like to speak on this. Good evening again, good afternoon. Today, my colleagues on the other side, Assemblyman for Scarborough Cudler Hall. First, he said he did not know what this side was about. He cannot understand the motion. We, the elderly, on this side, we would like you to understand the motion is about working together, the youths and the elderly. We are here to work together, and I would choose one, tourism. We are here for building our country, Tobago, and further, Tobago and Trinidad. There are so many developments that we put together that we would like to see or get them going, get the mill spinning, as the old one would say, get the axe grinding, and we can see new development taking places. Like, for instance, if you journey to Bloody Bay, Palliative, you would know that there is a main waterfall which can be opened up. And if it's opened up, it brings more tourism to the country. They say we speak about money. Yes, finances will come. We'll get more income. We'll get more workers. And we can even bring workers from our nearby countries. For instance, I traveled to Barbados, and I saw in Barbados where you have the lagoons, and they turned the lagoon into a form of where you can take boats and go down the stream and view the place. It have bird sanctuary. It's all around the lagoon. It have floral settlements, and it's just an upliftment. We can do trading, bartering like we did before. We can bring skilled workers, some of their workers, to show us how to do. These are the plans that we have, and we are hoping to put our plans, have them going. Our member for the Speaker, Assemblyman, Mr. Campbell, who said that, Ms. Jenny Campbell, who said that the development for the youths, there is not much youths working in the education system, in the health system. We need the elderly too, because of our knowledge. It would have shown before that about 50% of the elderly might not have education, but knowledge, they have knowledge, and they have common sense.
Member, your speaking time has ended.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to remove that the sorry. Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move that the member's speaking time be extended by 2 minutes.
Honorable House, the question put is that the member's speaking time be extended a further 2 minutes. All in favor, say aye. All against, say nay. The ayes have it. Member, your speaking time is extended a further 2 minutes.
Tobago can be used as, Little Tobago can be used as some of us who travel and go to cruises, in Haiti, there is a place called La Badie. It is developed. It is like Little Tobago. So we can sell it to the tourism country, the boat, and they would come in and develop that for us. Then we will get workers, our youth will have work, our elderly will have work, we will have education. There's so much. And yes, finances will come. So that's one we can do. Another, we can develop down at Cove, the Madalena area, where we have that nice little slope-in area. We can use it for small boats. I travel to St. Vincent. I love to travel, and I see where they have the marine. We can use it as a marina area. And those are the plans that we have put in place. So I want to say to my colleagues that, as my friend would have said, where jackass meet, we go meet, because horse already reached there, but this jackass,
Thank you, member.
galloping slowly, and we get in there.
Thank you,
Mr.
member.
Presiding Officer, thank you very much.
Honorable members, let us all remember to have respect for this august house and for all other members present here. Members in the public gallery, we ask that you refrain from the chit-chatter and please allow these honorable members to deliver their presentations. Thank you. Assemblyman Marilyn Prokop Beckles, member for Belgarden East, Roxborough, Delaford.
Good day, Mr. Presiding Officer, my colleagues on both sides, persons in the public gallery, the media, and all who are looking at us. Mr. Presiding Officer, this is about perspective. And my perspective, the size of a population cannot determine its economic development. Look at Venezuela and Haiti. Large countries, big populations. It means that size is not everything. However, we have to look at the demographic of the country, the person's skill set, the competencies of the people. So in my humble view, I like to put forward what we call the 3 Ps. We need a political will and proper policies. That's 1. 2, we need people. We need a relevant education system. We need a competitive, knowledgeable workforce. We couple that with consumer spending and business investment. And 3, we need the physical infrastructure. When we have the physical infrastructure in terms of plant, machinery, we add the technology to all of that. Those are important factors for any kind of economical development. Mr. Presiding Officer, yes, all the population data shows that we are an aging society. What are the implications for that for seniors? It means that the longer we live, is the higher the cost in terms of our health care, social services, etc. So it stands to reason that our policymakers would now have to review those systems in order to ensure that we, as we get older and we leave the system and we're no longer working, we can have that quality of life. Madam, Mr. Presiding Officer, we all know it's a fact. It takes much more to treat an adult with a chronic disease condition than a child or an adult with a simple infection. Mr. Presiding Officer, we the seniors, we have a wealth of information, we have knowledge, we have the skills. And when that is correctly harnessed, we can help to develop Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, we the seniors, we have economic power, we have influence, and we have valuable resources in this Tobago. Margaret Mead, an anthropologist, stated, connections between generations are essential for the mental health and stability of any nation, and that's what we want in Tobago, mental health and stability, not only in the nation, for all our citizens. So as such, we urge the youths to connect with us. When they connect with us, we can have that sense of fulfillment, they have a sense of purpose, it will leave the isolation, and it broadens our horizon when we learn to use the technology available to us. In our document, Vision 2020 document, it speaks about nurturing our assets. It means that we need to provide an enabling environment for all of us to learn and grow, to reinforce positive behaviors, to help us to be lifelong learners, and to be creative and productive citizens. The World Bank talks about human capital. It consists of our knowledge, skills, and health that we accumulate throughout our lifetime. I hasten to add our experiences and talents, as well as training as knowledgeable workers, can lead to a more productive society and more production. However, Mr. Presiding Officer, the whole concept of health, human capital, suggests that we are not all equal. We don't have all the skills and talents as everyone. Therefore, we must invest in people. And we can do an investment through education. I'm suggesting, as we start to invest in people, we start in our early childhood education, right up to university. Mr. Presiding Officer, human capital will affect our economy. It will affect the growth of any country. It helps to expand our knowledge and the skills of the people. So it makes sense investing in people. In that way, when we invest in people, we create opportunities for employment. There's a trickle-down effect because we now have more spending power, we now have to pay more taxes, and there's more investment. That's how it goes. Mr. Presiding Officer, seniors, that's us, we can and we do pass on our stories to the young ones in order to preserve the traditions, morals, values, and culture. We perform many roles. We are here acting as politicians today. However, we do mentoring for the young ones because we want to ensure that they do not make the same mistakes that we did. Hence the reason to mentor them. In closing, Mr. Presiding Officer, it is said, age represents the wealth of life experience that shape who we are. To the youths, it is said, if you do not go after what you want, you will never have it. If you do not ask, answer will always be no. If you do not step forward, you would always be in the same place.
Thank you, member. Assemblyman Lennox Trotman, member for Bethel, Mount Irvin.
Good evening, Mr. Presiding Officer, members of this honorable house, people in the public gallery, the media, and those on the social media. Good evening. Mr. Presiding Officer, I want to say how I enjoy listening to my eminent colleagues on this side, pointing out all the negativity and discrepancy and errors that is in this motion that is before us today. I want also to add a little to it. Now, Mr. Ronald Frederick S. Castaneda, an intern in WYA Asia Pacific Office, state in this document, and I quote, "Several generations comprise a population." So when this motion talk about population size, is it referring to all the generation in this population that should be increased so that we could realize economic development? I beg to differ. I think that in the population, there is a specific generation that needs this increase and this maintenance. And I want to suggest that that generation should be the working class, the one that produce, the one that will help in this economic development. Mr. Presiding Officer, there was a lot of talk about human capital. But I want to suggest that human capital is driven by education. I want to ask if our present education system is developing human that is innovative, skillful, that could help in this economic development. According to this document here, World Economic Forum 2010, and I quote, "Trinidad and Tobago lags behind both countries, Jamaica and Barbados, in secondary and tertiary enrollment." Now, if we are to develop human capital, the education system must be such that will produce the resources that is necessary for this development. Early childhood, primary, secondary, tertiary. So if we have in the generation that is responsible for production, less enrollment, and that is the place where innovation and skills is identified. How do we get this development that we need? So the question in my mind is the education system presently a help or a hindrance to this development? There is a lot of talk also of seniors have a wealth of knowledge, which is a fact. I am a senior in this present population, and I am willing to work with the youths in this development that this motion is speaking to. But there is this gap between the seniors and the young people that needs to bridge. And I think the pillars that will help build this bridge must be healthy education, communication, production, and consultation. We must have this bridge that is so obvious, closed by this gap that is so obvious, closed by this bridge that I'm talking about. So education is very important.
Member, your speaking time has expired.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move that this member's speaking time be extended by 2 minutes.
Honorable House, the question posed is that this member's speaking time be extended a further 2 minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say nay. The ayes have it. Member, you can continue your presentation.
And for seniors like myself to share my knowledge with share our knowledge and experience. I'm not too sure. But then there is this talk about sharing, and it should be a two-way process. Mr. Presiding Officer, if the legislature could form committee, I'm not sure if they could, but if they could, and this bill has passed with the amendments that is proposed by this side, I think that it is a good forum for old and young through this committee, if it is possible, to be set up immediately after the passing of this bill, so that immediately we could have this exchange of knowledge so that we can identify innovation and skills, and which is helpful to the economic development.
Thank you, member.
Thank you.
Minority Councillor Luke James Trim.
Mr. Presiding Officer, my fellow colleagues, members in the public gallery, and to the media, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, for allowing me to speak on this preamble of the motion that says, and I quote, whereas human capital resources are critical to the development of Tobago and the preservation of its indigenous culture. It takes a village to raise a child. Mr. Presiding Officer, I am more than a little dissatisfied with the wording of this motion, and I cannot but find fault with it. Before we get into this discussion, I would like for each and every one of us in this room to get a solid understanding of what human capital is really about. Marvin L. Stein, renowned economist, stating that human capital encompasses the notion that in people there are investments such as our education, or skills, or training, and our health. And these investments increases our productivity, which in turn expands our economic growth. So what I am saying, and Councillor Lewis, I would like you to pay close attention to what I'm about to say right here. Human capital aids in the economic growth of a country, but it is not critical for development. Development is much more than economic growth. Other indicators of development, such as our education, or health, or infrastructure, and our employment rates, must cohesively work with human capital for true development to be achieved. But one bad apple spoils the bunch, doesn't it? Mr. Presiding Officer, there are many developmental shortcomings hindering Tobago's goal of true development. For instance, along the lines of infrastructure, more specifically in our education system, we have Scarborough Secondary School. On the 22nd of October, a letter provided to me by the student body highlighting the myriads of problems at the school addressed to the Honorable Kelvin Charles stated light fixtures that are installed in most rooms started smoking. Some of these rooms are the laboratories where flammable chemicals are being kept. Sometime in October, one of these said fixtures exploded. How will you feel having to put your life at risk every day to receive an education? This school has been on the verge of submersion for more than 10 years. Soon, and very soon, based on the rate of dilapidation, Scarborough Secondary School will become Tobago's very own Titanic. How are these students supposed to learn effectively when most of their teaching days are interrupted by evacuations of their minefield? Moving on to unemployment, statistical data provided by the International Labour Organization stated that Tobago has a population of roughly 60,874 people. Of this 60,874 people, 3.4% of them are unemployed, such as our doctors, the future to our health system. In an interview conducted by my research team, one of these unemployed doctors said, and I quote, "It hurts so much putting in those years and money, only to come home and there are no jobs. I had to take up a job at KFC to help pay my debt and also care for my mother." So there it is, we have it. From biochemistry and patient care to chicken combos and $25 specials. Mr. Presiding Officer, this is unacceptable. How is our healthcare system supposed to thrive when our doctors are too busy conducting surgeries on leg and thigh and breast and wing? Measures need to be put in place to ensure that our doctors can serve Tobago upon completion of their studies. To everyone in this room, when thinking about Tobago and you hear the words "our indigenous culture," what's the first thing that comes to your mind? I'm pretty sure it's our heritage festivals, created to preserve the unique cultural traditions of Tobago. But why isn't our indigenous culture integrated in these festivals? In my hand, I have a map, and this map was constructed using information provided from the museum in Fort King George. The holes you are seeing in places such as Legislature and Pembroke are archaeological sites where evidence that our first people, the indigenous people, the Tainos and the Kalinagos, inhabited Tobago. These cultural assets are key aspects to our indigenous culture, but what measures are being placed to ensure that these things are preserved, they are retained and pinpointed? Where are the monuments with the codes of conduct? Why is the public not being educated about the Tainos and the Kalinagos? It is evidence that human capital has not been doing its job of preserving our indigenous culture.
Your speaking time has ended.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I once again beg to move that the members' speaking time be extended by 2 minutes.
Honorable House, the question posed is that the members' speaking time be extended a further 2 minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say nay. Member, your speaking time is extended by a further 2 minutes. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. As I was saying, human capital has been doing a terrible job of preserving our indigenous culture, which brings us to the argument that preserving our indigenous culture goes way beyond human capital resources. Successful preservation can only stem from measures being put in place to ensure that cultural retention is being practiced to the full extent in Tobago, Mr. Presiding Officer. Like I said before, it takes a village to raise a child. We are all present here today because we are trying to raise our child, Tobago. Our villages are human capital working alongside indicators of development and cultural retention. Our child can only be raised. Tobago can only be developed if the village is fully functioning. And it is up to us to ensure that the nature of this village is not one of a disharmonious nature, Mr. Presiding Officer. So my question to each and every one of you today is, how will you raise your child? Will you base their development on only one principle, or will you ensure that they attain holistic development? Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Assemblyman Lexine Williams, member for Providence, Mason Hall, Mariah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Presiding Officer, fellow colleagues, person in the public gallery, and members of press. Mr. Presiding Officer, I am wholeheartedly for this motion to form a working committee between seniors and students to develop a framework for the transfer of knowledge between the two groups. A quote by Henry Ford: "Coming together is a beginning. Staying together is progress. And working together is success. As the opposition went against this motion to say that there isn't enough jobs or facilities to house or accommodate a larger population, let us look at the benefits here. This is our opportunity to create more facilities and job opportunities for a larger population. Those against this motion again argued that the seniors have no more within them to contribute to our island's development. But at present, our seniors have and are still contributing way more to society than our youths. It was once said, they are old, but they are not cold. Amen. A woman I know once believed that where we came from can shape where we are going as a people. There must be room for collaboration. Ronald Frederick Castaneda, in his article, Why Bridging the Gap Between Generations Means Progress, and a member on the opposing side, also touched on one of his quotes. He said, a relationship between the elderly and the young is beneficial because it enables both to learn new skills. Young people could learn the wisdom to not make the same mistakes, and both old and young would increase their knowledge about their community as a whole. He also went on by saying, passing on the wisdom of the elderly to the younger generations will help build and foster the development of society. I am a product of the benefits of sitting at the feet of elders. My grandmother has taught me so much life skills, and I am still learning. And the sharing of knowledge has been reciprocated, as my grandmother is on WhatsApp. In this motion, we are reminded that human capital resources are critical to the development of Tobago and its preservation of culture. According to the 2016 article by Kairos Bay entitled The Relevance of Human Capital for Cambodia, human capital is the term used for education, health, and other human capabilities that can dwell in an individual person and raise labor productivity and well-being when increased. Mr. Presiding Officer, even though we are not in Cambodia, the definition still applies and human capital resources still refers to people being perceived as assets. How can we develop Tobago if we do not recognize the value of all our people, old and young? Identifying and utilizing the resources of our human capital resources, especially our seniors, would preserve our indigenous cultural heritage as our older generations would be given the opportunity to share their knowledge of Tobago's culture, creating awareness and continuity of our traditions like Tobago Heritage Festival. Mr. Presiding Officer, in closing, let me restate my points in support of this motion. This motion would be a success when we put in the necessary time to create avenues for maintaining the population size, which would positively affect economic development. Avenues like creating tertiary industries and employment opportunities for our migrating youths can be considered. We also implement social and community programs where our seniors get the opportunity to share their tacit knowledge, which one of my colleagues stressed on. Our seniors are invaluable and they should be respected and utilized for their wealth and knowledge and experience within them. Because they are 60 doesn't mean they are irrelevant. Because they are retired doesn't mean they are invalued or not functional. The working committee created for this motion would suggest training and interaction opportunities where collaboration between seniors and young people can begin and continue. Such collaborations could only improve the social economic way of life in Tobago. But before I close, Assemblyman Janae Campbell would have mentioned that the youth has trouble finding jobs. Let me tell you why. In Tobago, we have a mentality of you know who and who know you. As the leader of Assembly said, invest in life skills. I thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer, and my fellow colleagues. Good day.
I invite Councillor Whiteman to conclude.
Presiding Officer, I would like to conclude by saying, my colleague on the other side rightly stated Singapore has no natural resources to speak of. Population growth might be stagnant. We in the government, however, are quite aware of that fact. However, Singapore's strength is not just human capital, but good and tactful management of it. Tobago, on the other hand, has petrol, rich agricultural land, magnificent tourist attraction, just to name a few, along with human capital consisting of spicy seniors bubbling over with a wealth of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of things from yesteryear, eager to share with yearning, vibrant, tech-savvy juniors. Mix all these together, and together we aspire, together we achieve, as stated on our coat of arms. Perfect blend for any developing country. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Members, the motion is, whereas it is known that population size is linked to economic development, and therefore Tobago will benefit from maintaining and even increasing its population size, and whereas human capital resources are critical to the development of Tobago and the preservation of its indigenous culture, and whereas the experience of seniors continues to be an invaluable asset to our development, which must be balanced by providing opportunities to encourage the retention of youth skills on the island. Be it resolved that this legislature of students and seniors form a working committee to develop a framework for the transfer of knowledge between seniors and young people in the workplace. And be it resolved that the transfer of knowledge be effectively a two-way process. And be it further resolved that the report be submitted to the respective line divisions for considerations as statements to be laid in the House within 6 months. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say nay. Nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Leader of Assembly Business, Abimbola Maharaj.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move that the Honorable House be adjourned to a date to be fixed.
Members, the question put is that this House stands adjourned to a date to be fixed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say nay. This House now stands adjourned to a date to be fixed.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to recognize the presence of the Deputy Presiding Officer, the Honorable Chief Secretary, Mr. Chief Secretary, Deputy Chief Secretary, other secretaries, assistant secretaries, councillors of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Clerk of the House, former Presiding Officer, Dr. Denise Soifat Angus, distinguished debate team, judges, visitors in the public gallery, members of the media, all other visitors, viewers, listeners, near and far. My name is Avion Hercules. Good afternoon, and I am the Master of Ceremonies for this portion of the Tobago Day debate. At this time, I'd want to ask the Clerk of the Assembly Legislature, Mrs. Sherry-Ann Edwards-Louis, to bring you our welcome remarks.
Deputy Presiding Officer, Mr. Ansel Dennis, Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Education, Innovation and Energy, the Honorable Kelvin Charles, and members of the Executive, former Presiding Officer, Dr. Denise Soifat Angus, Chief Administrator, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Karuma, and administrators of the Tobago House of Assembly, former Clerk of the Assembly, Mrs. Sharon Irving Cumby, members of the debating team, and I need to get it correct, tech-savvy juniors and spicy seniors, members of the Tobago Day Planning Committee, observers and the friends of the Assembly Legislature, members of the media, excellent staff of the Assembly Legislature, welcome to the closing ceremony of this, the 7th annual debate held in celebration of Tobago Day. Previously, the debate was titled the Youth Assembly Debate due to its focus on secondary school students and their sixth form peers. This year, however, as you have heard from the presiding officer, the Assembly Legislature has given consideration to the fact that both the young and the young at heart have equal contributions to make towards participatory democracy. The approach to the debate remains one of immersive participation in our training workshops on debating, using the Westminster model of government. As such, every single participant will be recognized today with certificates of participation and relevant text to enhance their development. The top 3 debaters, whether they be seniors or juniors, will be given special recognition and a token that they can use constructively. As I close, I trust that you have indeed enjoyed the debate and will stay with us for the cocktail to follow. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I am, after listening to today's debate, I am confident that our future is in excellent hands. Do you agree with me? At this time, I'd like to welcome to bring you some remarks the main judge, Mr. Michael Stewart. Are they ready? Are the judges ready? I should ask that. Are the judges ready? 2 minutes? Okay. So, we listened today about intergenerational relationships. And, you know, what I see here really, what I've heard here is an extraction of the 4 pillars of intergenerational relationships, talking about respect, Each of the speakers touched on a little bit of respect, responsibility, reciprocity, and resiliency. And I listened to Miss Lewis, who made a tremendous impact on me, as my forte had been tourism. And you talked about with travel and so on. And the research shows that millennials and Gen Z both have similar taste in terms of travel. So there's more similarities than there are dissimilarities with respect to the older persons, what I like to call youth of yesterday and the youth of today. All right? And, the travel trend looks at intergenerational travel as a lucrative market. And that trend isn't tending to pass anytime soon. The clerk of the House indicated that this debate has taken a different twist, in that this is the first time in the history of the Tobago House of Assembly there is a debate of the older heads and the senior heads coming together. And I think that this is a wonderful initiative. I'd like to salute the former presiding officer, Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus. Please join me in giving her excellent congratulations for this vision in creating and establishing what in fact will be a legacy in the making. Young people talked about talked about the village, the proverbial village that raises the children, and reconnecting and creating indelible linkages that will support the future. And they are quite right. And this, again, is the forum where we can sit together and discuss these types of opportunities, looking for Tobago. Yes? And the judges have the unenviable task of finding the top speakers. I do not envy them one bit. But at this time, please join me in welcoming to the podium Mr. Michael Stewart, who will bring the judges' remarks.
Deputy Presiding Officer, Mr. Ansel Dennis, Chief Secretary and Secretary of Education, Innovation and Energy, the Honorable Kelvin Charles, and members of the executive, the former Presiding Officer, Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus, Chief Administrator, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Karuma, and administrators, former Clerk of the Assembly, Mrs. Sharon Irving Comby, members of the debating team, members of the Tobago Day Planning Committee, observers and friends of the Assembly, members of the media, and of course the staff of the Assembly Legislature, teachers and persons in the gallery. Good afternoon. Our task as judges was a Herculean one. The judges consist of Mr. Julian Skeet, Ms. Yvette Caruth, and myself, Michael Stewart. I think this debate was one of the most exciting that I have had a chance to participate in, and I think you need to give them a round of applause. It was a wonderful blend of the seniors who have common sense and the young people who have energy and passion. I think also the presiding officer needs to come in for special commendation for his calm and his ability to manage the house. I think we should put you in position very soon. We felt that the quality of the debate was quite good. We did not have too much reading. Persons ad lib. They allowed their passion to flow. And some of them got into the very character of the role, and which was very impressive. We felt that the research, there was some research. We felt there could have been more research, however, but time constraints, I'm sure, would have been what limited deeper research into some of the topics. So there was an excitement and engaging opportunity in the House today. So let me thank the teachers, the facilitators, etc., just before we go into now the results. All should be commended. Top 3, according to our judges. We'll start with number 3. Number 3 would have been Jenny Campbell. Very stirring presentation, madam. Second, Kelly Lewis. Another wonderful, passionate presentation. And number one. I wonder if I could find number 1's name. Number 1, Jamon Madden, the minority. Judging is not an easy thing. Though we may have enjoyed all of them, and sometimes we tend to choose based on who we enjoy the most, we had certain guidelines to look for, and we were constrained to be able to adhere to those guidelines. The judges' decisions most times are final.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Stewart. Please let us give Mr. Michael Stewart, the head judge, a round of applause. And we want to also thank all the other judges on the panel. And could you please give, I see Miss Yvette Parks-Caruth, and also Mr. Julian Skeet on the panel, and Mr. Stewart, please. Thank you so much for your hard work. At this time, I'd want to welcome the Deputy Presiding Officer of the Assembly Legislature, Mr. Ansel Dennis, to bring you remarks. Mr. Dennis.
Thank you very much. Significant difference in height there. Of course, let me recognize the Honorable Chief Secretary, Kelvin Charles, other secretaries and assistant secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, of course, Chief Administrator, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Karuma, Clerk of the Assembly, Ms. Sherian Edwards-Louis, administrators of the Tobago House of Assembly, other members of staff of the Tobago House of Assembly, of course, our visitors and members of the public, and last but not least, let me recognize the members of today's sitting, and I want you to give them a round of applause. And also in our midst, the former presiding officer, Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus, and other former members of the Tobago House of Assembly. You know, interestingly, I sat there and I was reminded of myself to some extent. And you know, before I go further, let me also congratulate the members of staff of the Assembly Legislature. All those who contributed, of course, our distinguished judges, all the persons who provided the necessary training and the necessary guidance to ensure that today's debate was in fact a resounding success. And I want to say, and this might be a controversial statement, but I think today's sitting rivaled other sittings of this House in terms of the level of interest and in terms of the quality of the debating that we had here this afternoon. And again, give them a round of applause. And of course, in previous times, the Tobago Day debate was in fact a youth debate. But in addition to that, we had separate and apart senior citizens debate. I think we had 2 of them in the past. And therefore, I think it was great and in fact a good thing for us to have a situation where the youth and our seniors are sitting together in the same house, debating a motion such as this one. And what was in fact interesting is that we didn't have a situation where it was youth versus seniors, but there were some seniors who were for the arguments and some were against. And likewise, there were also both young persons and seniors as well who supported the other side of the argument. And I think this signals that as a people of Tobago, especially when we consider the operations of governance and we consider the operations of this House, collaboration is important, the spirit of unity is important if we are in fact serious about Tobago's development. And therefore, I started by saying that I was somewhat reminded of myself and my own experiences. Because, of course, growing up in the community of Bucco Point, a number of my friends and a number of the persons that I associated closely with were, in fact, senior citizens. And I remember even my days at the bank. Usually the customers that I built close relationships with were in fact some of the senior citizens, and I'm actually seeing a couple of them here this afternoon. And therefore, very early on, I understood the importance as a young person that I should learn as much as possible. I should gain as much knowledge, as much insight as possible from the senior citizens within my community, and of course, those who I encountered on a daily basis. And therefore, it is important for us, and I'm saying us boldly, us as young persons, to understand and value the contributions of our senior citizens. Because I myself in the past, I've been guilty of making statements such as, and I'm talking about the recent past, as recent as 23, 24, guilty of making statements such as the seniors need to go home, or the seniors need to relax and give young people a chance and give young people more opportunities. And I'm saying that while young persons, of course, should be given opportunities even in the sphere of politics, I'm saying our senior citizens have a tremendous role to play, and that they should continue to play that important role as long as they continue to have life, and of course, as long as they continue to maintain good health. So I'm saying that we must build a Tobago space that, of course, encourages and accepts the views of our young persons, but also a space that values all the contributions of our seniors and those who would have gone before. And therefore, again, I want to congratulate all the debaters, especially for the respect shown. Because oftentimes we like to say the word honorable house. But when we look at some of the examples at our national parliament, and even at times, even in the Senate, most recently we had a very disturbing scenario taking place. sometimes the house is not always honorable. And therefore, I want to congratulate the young persons again for the level of respect that you displayed, the fact that you valued the contributions of others. And also let me congratulate Mr. Presiding Officer. And you know, I'm reminded that at this time there is a vacancy in the assembly. So Mr. Wilson, you ready? So I want to congratulate him for the manner in which he conducted this evening's sitting. So I'm saying that as we recognize Tobago Day, and yes, we're going to have a lot of fun. Tomorrow is sports. I think it was yesterday we had the triathlon. By the way, I am still feeling the effects of what was supposed to be a very short walk in the park. But as I speak, I'm still feeling muscle aches and stuff. So we'll have fun. And of course, we'll fellowship. And the visions and employees of the THA and their supporters will compete against each other. And of course, today we had a very interesting debate. But I want to suggest to us that Tobago Day and what we stand for and what we represent here in Tobago is in fact more than all the enjoyment. It is more than all the competition. But I'm saying it's about Tobagonians recognizing our Tobago-ness and continuing to demonstrate those qualities that are unique to Tobagonians. And I'm saying this guardedly, because when we evaluate our country and what is taking place at the national level, I'm sure all of us will agree that Tobago is somewhat protected from a lot of the negatives that are taking place in the sister isle. Of course, our crime rate isn't anywhere near as high. The level of corruption, the level of public disturbances, and all those things that are taking place in Trinidad. In Tobago, we are somewhat protected. But I want to remind us that we ought not to take that for granted. Because I'm saying that even the seniors here this evening must recognize that to some extent, Tobago has changed. And not many of the changes, or I should say not all of the changes, were positive changes. And therefore we have to recognize that it's important for us to teach our young people and teach our children at school the importance of our values here in Tobago. And I'm talking about those characteristics of productivity, an honest day's work for honest day's pay, loving thy neighbor as thyself, respecting our elders and even our peers, taking care of each other in our respective communities, being your brother's keeper. I am saying those are qualities and attributes that we must continue to hold dear in Tobago. And therefore, as we recognize our achievements as an island, and as we recognize all that we were able to achieve as a people, let us therefore look to the future with great confidence and great expectations, but also understanding that in order for us to achieve the kind of development that we will want to achieve, that it's important for us to maintain and continue to pursue our Tobago-centric ideals and values. So once again, congratulations to all of us, and let us continue to celebrate our achievements as an island on this Tobago Day. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a wonderful round of applause to Assemblyman Ansel Dennis for his words of inspiration and encouragement. And moving quickly along, we now welcome the Honorable Chief Secretary, the Honorable Kelvin Charles, to bring remarks, Chief Secretary and Secretary of Education, Innovation and Energy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hercules. In the interest of time, I would associate myself with the protocol already established. And as I did tell the Deputy Presiding Officer when he came back, I said, whilst you are encouraging Mr. Wilson to apply for the vacancy, it's a good thing he wasn't still in the chair, because he may have just said your speaking time is up. So I don't know if he would still recommend him as he sought to do. I also wish to extend my commendations to all those who would have been involved in both the planning and the execution of this activity this afternoon. And therefore, I would not repeat every interest group, but I would just say generally that I thank you for that. I also want to make the point that it really was a good afternoon's activity. I was particularly interested, and you will pardon me, in two persons. The person who was acting as Chief Secretary, because when I saw the young person, I looked at myself and I said, "Ma, she's so petite." And then the member for Blackrock Whim, where is she? She left. Because I said, wow, she's a very powerful speaker. And I was wondering whether it was a replica of myself. But I'm happy for the opportunity given to all persons today. I think the essence of the motion is quite instructive. And that is, it really seeks to interrogate the value, if any, in building or forging a relationship between those persons who are considered seniors and those persons who are considered young persons. And what was particularly interesting as well is the context, because the context talked about the workplace. You see? Thereby implying, among other things, that there is an institution of knowledge that the older persons can pass on to the younger ones, particularly in respect of how one conducts oneself in the work environment. And that doesn't relate only to the content of the work in the workplace, but also the culture of ethos and productivity which ought to characterize the workplace. And I think it is quite a useful conversation to have, because one of the challenges we continue to have in administration is the reluctance to develop our younger persons by our senior persons. And that is something that must be confronted with some degree of urgency. I take this opportunity to remind all of us here that the issue of the youth debate became a permanent fixture in 2013 when I was presiding officer of the Assembly Legislature. I felt it was important to have that activity become entrenched and have its own place in a set of activities designed to promote Tobago and Tobago people business. It had to become a living engagement of young persons as a practical attempt to encourage them to be part of a governance process that they would eventually become a part of. And indeed, if Miss Hercules is to be believed when she says that it's one of the better years, then it means that the experiment has worked. And that over the years, we are seeing persons coming forward who are better than those who went before. And governance is serious business. And we have to prepare our people for that kind of serious business. Because as you're aware, there is the constitutional bill before a joint select committee of the Parliament seeking to give greater autonomy to the people of Tobago. And we can't wait really until that happens to have our persons prepared for that. And that was all part of the thinking, strategically, to prepare our persons. And it is no, how should I put it? I mean, the fact that the deputy presiding officer continues to see himself as a young man, and of course, you know, he was appointed 3 years ago. At the time, he used to boast that he was the youngest person as an assemblyman. But it was a deliberate strategy as part of exposure of our young people to these kinds of activities. Because as young as I'm looking, I'm not that young. And I know enough about succession planning and the need to provide opportunities for young persons to develop and hone certain kinds of skills. So let me congratulate again those persons who have been recognized as first, second, and third, and to say to the others, do not be despaired. You all did well, and everyone has his or her strengths or weaknesses. And as the Chief Judge would have indicated, there may be some fine points which I'm sure he would probably say to you individually if he has the time. But one of the criteria had to be not only passion and so on, but the content. And while some persons were quite amusing, entertaining, and they were fun to listen to, the content may not have always been on point. And we need to recognize that as we train ourselves. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, with that, those of you who are part of the debate team, I thank you most sincerely for your contribution today as part of our Project Tobago Day 2019. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking the Honorable Chief Secretary one more time for his delivery. Permit me to recognize the presence of the Chief Administrator, Mrs. Bernadette Solomon Karoma, and other administrators. I missed you in the debate. And also the former clerk of the House, Mrs. Cumby. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we move into the presentation of tokens and certificates. And I would want to welcome the Chief Secretary again to join me at the podium to present one of the prizes to the first place debater, to the top debater. Do we have the photographer nearby? Okay. Thank you, Honorable Chief Secretary. Next, we call the Deputy Presiding Officer, Mr. Ansel Dennis, to present the second place token. Kaylee Lewis. Next, we'd like to ask the former presiding officer, Dr. Denise Soetford Angus, to present to Ms. Janae Campbell, the third place debater. Thank you, Dr. Angus. We next invite the Clerk of the House, Mrs. Sherry-Ann Edwards-Louis, to make a presentation to Mr. Stewart, Head Judge. And then welcoming again the former presiding officer, Dr. Denise Soetford Angus, to present the token of appreciation to Mrs. Yvette Parks Caruth. Ladies and gentlemen, please give the judges another round of applause. They worked very, very hard. So many people to give thanks to today. Thank you, Dr. Angus. Welcoming Mrs. Sharon Irvin Comby, former Clerk of the House, to present to Mr. Julian Skeet another of the judges. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I now call on Mrs. Sparkle Solomon to present a token of appreciation to Miss Juliet Pope, one of the facilitators of this year's exercise. And at the same time, I'll call on Mr. Shannon Callender and Mr. Solomon. Sorry, Miss Shannon Callender. That's you? Wait, hold on. And I'd ask Mr. Solomon to come forward one time, please. And let us thank Mr. Gladstone Solomon for his contribution. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it one more time for all of the persons who participated in this wonderful debate. Started in 2013, we got a lesson from the Chief Secretary. It was his vision, his idea, and we are so grateful that this debate has actually taken place. We also want to salute Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus for making it a twist this year. And I think this year has been really, really fabulous, really tremendous. The quality of the debate has been outstanding. I want to give, I'm going to ask you to give all the debaters another round of applause. One more time. The delivery, the eloquence, the information, I think we are on the right track with respect to the Tobago House of Assembly. And, you know, we want to take this a step further. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out. We want to thank all the teachers. Special commendations to the teachers who participated in this activity, and to you, the senior citizens. I call you the youth of yesterday. You are savvy, you are wonderful, and thank you so much for participating in this year's activity. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the 2017 debate, Tobago 2019 debate, sorry. 2019 debate. And I'd ask all of the debaters to assemble at the center of the area for a photo shoot, and to join the rest of the team for refreshments following. Thank you.
Good evening, Tobago. We are live at the Tobago Youth Day debate, and with me, I have Miss Jamie Rankasoon. So, Miss Rankasoon, can you tell me what is your overall thoughts on this year's debate, seeing the mixture between youth and seniors?
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would love to say that I enjoyed this debate. I believe it was a beautiful blend between seniors and youth. And listening to the debate today, it really opened my eye to all the different views and perspectives. So I really commend all the debaters for the hard work they put in and also the planning committee for this event.
Okay, what is your view on the motion?
My view on the motion is I would like to see the motion passed. I believe it's a very firm and strong motion, and it represents the core and the values of Tobago.
Which speaker stood out to you the most?
Miss Janae Clark stood out to me. She had the most mind-blowing and the most innovative and youthful performance today. I really believe that she did a great job.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, so Mr. Stewart, can you tell me what is your overall thought on this year's debate, seeing the mixture between young and old?
I think it was an excellent idea. It's very novel to bring them together, and especially not in putting them in opposing sides, but to bring them really together. And it linked into the topic itself that they had. It was really an exciting one to see them both collaborate to be able to bring out the points that they did in this interview.
Okay. Which speaker stood out to you the most?
Well, as one of the judges, I wouldn't want to get into that because we would have had to make the judgment based upon the criteria given to us, and those criteria may not have resonated with the most popular and the most entertaining. We had to look for content, and we had to look for research information that would have gone into the speech, and that would have caused us to be able to come out with some results that some people would agree with, and some people would have felt that I enjoy this other person more than the other.
Okay. So what is your view on the motion?
The motion, I agree with the whole collaboration between the seniors and the juniors. There must be some handing down of legacy and thought of the previous years to the coming generation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. Yes, so we're back once again, and we are live at the Tobago Youth Debate. And with me, I have Miss Almarie Dagazo. And Miss Almarie, can you tell me what is your overall thought on this year's debate, seeing the mixture between the youth and seniors?
Well, I think it was quite inspirational. The connectedness between the two, and it's a good sign that age really, it has no number in age, and the influence that you can have one way or the other. I think it really is good for our country.
Okay. Which speaker stood out to you the most, and why?
Oh, well, I like the young man who ended up winning the debate. I think that his arguments were solid.
Is this Mr. Madden?
Yes, I think he's the person. I think his arguments were solid. He had a good tone, his pronunciation, his language. And I have a little bias for young men doing well. So maybe I started off with a bias in the first place. But I liked his delivery. He was confident, and I think hats off.
Okay. So what is your view on the motion?
Well, I think it's consistent with the view that was expressed, and I agree with a lot of the things that Mr. Madden said. It's important for us to have the intergenerational connectivity, but certainly there needs to be created a space for young people to develop and grow, and we should not view it as a replacement of, but as you rightfully said, a handing down, a passing on of the skills. But there is so much more to developing a country than just mere the human capital, and I think we certainly, if we take all of what was said on board from both sides, we'll be doing well.
Okay, thank you very much.
I sound very hungry.
All right, so with me I have Mr. Julian Skeet. And Mr. Skeet, can you tell me what is your view on the motion?
All right, my view on the motion is that there would have been an excellent opportunity to really speak to what I usually view as the ideal, the combination of experience over time that would come from our seniors, along with the creativity, the energy, and the newness of our youth. So I was particularly pleased with the motion.
Okay, so what is your overall thoughts on the debate, seeing the mixture between the youth and the seniors?
Well, I'm grateful for where the debate has come to, because as the Chief Secretary would have referred to, it would have been started in 2013 in his time as presiding officer, and I've had the privilege of actually being here for the last 7 years, from 2013 each year in terms of participating, and I've also been given the opportunity to assist with judging, and I can tell you for a fact we have seen what is the improvements in terms of the quality of the debate that has been presented, and I also want to take the opportunity not only to commend him for the start, but to also commend the now former presiding officer, Dr. Angus, having looked at what is a different angle of the debate, bringing together seniors and young persons in a setting to be able to contribute, to make meaningful contribution.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Skeet.
Thank you.
Oh. You want to take a picture of it? You want to look for that? Well, yeah. Somebody tell me outside, but you right here. No boy, Jamona, coming back.
If you were in a movie, you would become the character. You were actually like the character. Yeah, you were so passionate. You don't find so you don't find so she was so passionate. Like she was actually living the character.
All right, the president. Inside the room. Come on, guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenda Roberts Henry, and we are reporting from the legislation out the chambers on the Tobago Day debate. So we are here with Ms. Evelyn on this very serious occasion. So we are asking Ms. Evelyn what do she think about the debate today?
Well, I think the debate today was a very educational and rewarding one, as it's my first time witnessing it, and I've had the opportunity to understand that the elders are the pillars of society, and there's a need to intergenerate the young persons with the elders. We cannot do without the elders in society, and if we stand on one common ground, combining the youths with the seniors in our society, we will have a better, productive country, more so community. We see, well, of course, the elders, as it is stated, the adolescents need guidance, right? That's one point I would have gathered. And we really and truly cannot do without the elders in society. And the points that they would have brought home, the young ones, I do understand. Of course, there's a grievance because when you get out of school, you want to work and, so much knowledge. And where do you put all this wealth of knowledge? So with the seniors combining with the young ones and, of course, guiding them accordingly, we will have a wealth of knowledge, of course, and, of course, development, because there is room for development will take place in our society.
Thank you, Ms. Evelyn. Thank you so much.
So he knows that.
So you see if you're accustomed using that, that's the one he will
Because he's sponsored.
So you have to let him know for tomorrow to run it on Tobago Day period. Background. Your colors are too bright.
Okay, so with me I have Dr. Denise Sawyerfat Angus, the previous presiding officer of the House. So, Dr. Angus, can you tell me what are your views on the motion, seeing that you had a lot to do with it?
I sat there and I listened, and tears actually came to my eyes. I was so overwhelmed by the presentations and the level of maturity that was brought to the table in the debating skills that persons portrayed. And of course, the presiding officer position is dear to my heart. And Mr. Wilson really, he did magnificently in the position. He took charge of the House just as a presiding officer is supposed to do. And I want to commend and congratulate all of the persons, our young people and our seniors who participated in the debate. When we initially formed the motion, we wanted to ensure that it wasn't just a seniors versus a youth debate, but that both sides could see the perspectives of each other's sides. And I think they represented that well today. So congratulations to all of them. And I really want to commend and thank the staff of the Assembly Legislature for the work that they did in preparing the persons for the debate and in the preparation for the actual day, especially the new clerk, Mrs. Louis. She just came in and had to take over a lot of the work in the past 2 weeks, but they were able to pull it off. And so I say congratulations, a job well done.
Okay, so Dr. Angus, what is your overall thoughts seeing the mixture between young and old in this year's debate?
My overall thoughts is that we have to make this happen again. The youths, they bring their perspective, they are tech savvy, they are innovative, they're creative, and the seniors, they are important to the creation in terms of the historical documentation of the past, our experiences, our traditions, and therefore they, like it says, they have to find a way to work towards each other. In every issue you have the youth focus, and also have the elders. So I certainly hope that this debate will continue, and therefore we will continue to understand that we must see both sides. We are not just cater for those down the middle, the adults.
Okay, so Dr. Angus, do you mind telling us who was your favorite debater and why?
All of them were my favorites. It would really be hard for me to say which one, because I definitely did not want to be a judge, because I think everyone brought their unique style to the table, and they were able to deliver it in their way. And so I really could not say which one. Perhaps I'll stick safely to the presiding officer's share. Yes.
Okay, Dr. Angus, thank you very much.
What happened? Everyone takes some picture of the other team, the other side of the team.
Better get you standing up because I can't get you over there.
That's okay. Let me see. I need a picture with the winners as well. I would like to get a picture with the group. Hmm? Hmm? Yes.
I'll keep this document and go ahead for a little while and then pass it back. All right, then.
The other side, the no, talking about the. Nice, really good, really good.
We could go to get snacks.
Hmm?
We could go now to get snacks.
I hope they have snacks too. You know what I mean? What? We so enjoying ourselves here.
Okay, so with me I have Miss Lexine Williams. And Lexine, would you tell me what was your experience like being a debater?
Well, I wouldn't say it's entirely new because I am in love with spoken word. So this would just help me build on how I speak and present. But the debate was nice and it was really enjoyable. It was a good experience.
Okay, so Miss Williams, what are your thoughts on the motion?
Well, at first I was against the motion with some points, but when I was put on the side to go for, it opened up my eyes to the actual truth of the motion, and that is why I enjoyed and presented with passion.
Okay, so as a youth, would you say that the elders are a valuable asset? Are they a valuable asset?
Invaluable.
Okay, so you would say that they are invaluable.
I would say that, okay, let me just put it. The elders, their knowledge, as me and my fellow colleagues said, their knowledge is priceless. And we need to put that to use to develop Tobago.
Okay, so thank you very much, Miss Williams. Do enjoy the rest of your evening.
Same to you.
So with me, I have Miss
Cindy Lou Edwards.
Okay, so Miss Edwards, can you tell me what are your thoughts on the motion?
I'm actually for the motion because I believe in the collaboration that they spoke about, where the elders can share more information, especially with Tobago and our indigenous culture. I believe in the oral traditions, and we can learn so much from our older generation who can pass on these information and these different traditions so that our young people will be better equipped to move forward.
Okay, so, Miss, can you tell me what or who was your favorite speaker at this year's debate?
My favorite speaker was everyone.
Okay, and why would you say everyone?
Because they brought their best game and they represented themselves well, and I really felt proud of everybody who stood up and shared, whether they were for or against. They did a wonderful job.
Okay, thank you. Okay, citizens. So with me, I have Mr. Daniel Wilson, who acted in the position of presiding officer this year. So, Mr. Wilson, can you tell me what are your thoughts on the motion?
Well, to me, the motion is a very good one. It's a good motion in that it helps for the effective transfer of knowledge between youth and seniors. And in Tobago, we need that transfer in order for our development economically, politically, and socially to develop.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this year's debate?
This year's debate was a very fun-filled and exciting debate. I had to put the house in order a couple of times because just the passion was so invigorating among the members. So it was very well planned out. The motion was a wonderful motion, and it was overall a very good debate.
How would you describe your experience as presiding officer of the house? Was it hard or was it a bit easy?
Well, in the initial process, it was a bit hard to kind of adapt to certain things, but once I got in the chair and got comfortable with all the standing orders and the procedures, it became very easy. So it was a very fun task.
So, Mr. Wilson, is this something that you look forward to do again in the future, probably permanently?
Well, I'm interested in the law. I'm interested in law, so possibly, potentially, no promises.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Viewers, I think that we're safe to say that Tobago would be in excellent hands.